How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the preseason roundup for season 5 of the Elite Battle League. Full disclosure, this is the third time this is getting recorded. It has not been a fun time because people keep leaving. So that has led to me having to do multiple recordings. One was on my own. One I am, of course, still joined by my temporary co-host just for the preseason roundup, Lionheart Plays. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Brief. I love it. Of course, the EBL Season 5 starts on February 25th, Saturday, February 25th. For the competitors, it starts a little sooner because we have to battle before that. But for you guys, it is on February 25th. All the coaches' channels are in the description. That's where all the matches are going to be found. You guys, I'm telling you, watching both perspectives it makes it 10 times better. So please go check out all the coaches, go subscribe to them, and watch all the point of views when the season kicks off on February 25th. And of course, subscribe to the EBL channel down below if that button's not, gray. I think it is when you subscribe. Make sure it is. Subscribe so you not miss any roundups, power rankings, and anything else that's on the channel, because I still don't know if we've confirmed those or not. So yeah, check out all the good stuff. Subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff where it's necessary. It's all greatly appreciated. With all that being said, we're doing this preseason roundup a little differently because, again, this is the third time we're recording. I do just want to mention, though, if there's anything in here that's wrong, if a competitor dropped out and someone replaced them, sorry, it is what it is. This is the last time I'm recording this. So if any of the information's wrong regarding the competitors, I apologize, but it is what it is. But yeah, so we're doing this a little differently. We're going to be going through the matchups, and while we go through the matchups, we're going to be talking about the teams as we go along to try and shorten it a little bit. So with that being said, let's get into our first matchup. We have the reigning champions, the Fort Sill Warriors, going against the Snowdonian Frostmoth. The Fort Sill Warriors, of course, the coaches here. Lionheart Plays are again our co-hosts here for today. His team consists of Lugia, Whimsicott, Mewtwo, Galarian Rapidash, Primarina, Leafeon, Barraskewda, Darmanitan, and Hawlucha. Some familiar faces mixed in with some new faces for his team. It's definitely a dangerous team. I think it has a ton of offensive pressure. I think I've done a good enough job of showing off the likes of Mewtwo and Leafeon, and of course last season Lugia, Barraskewda, Whimsicott we know is very annoying. They're just great Pokemon overall. I think this team adds a whole heck of a lot of offensive pressure. This might be, I'd argue, probably your most offensive team. I'm speaking to you. This might be your most offensive team thus far. I think maybe only Season 3 rivals it in terms of how offensive it can be, and how much pressure it'll add. So it is a very scary team, and it's definitely a very, very strong team for the reigning champion to try and turn this around and flip his 4th championship, which is it's not fair for everyone else. But on the flip side, he has the newcomer. These two cannot be more opposite. You have a 3-time champ going against a newcomer, the Snowdonian Frostmoth, whose coach is JakeXY. His team consists of Zarude, Heatran, Inteleon, Comfey, Quagsire, Archeops, Mimikyu, Nidoking, and Frostmoth. A team that on the surface doesn't look incredible, but when you start to break down each Pokemon individually, honestly, this is, and I've heard this answer quite a few times, this is one of the more underrated teams in the league. I think this is a really strong team, and a team that's almost like a dark horse, where we don't really know what we're going to get from Jakey, but I have a feeling he's going to, I hit my mic, he's going to have a good season nonetheless. This team, like I said, altogether may not look fantastic, but when you start breaking down each Pokemon individually, it is a pretty solid team. How are you feeling about your team and your first opponent there?
Well, like you said, I think this is one of my most offensive teams that I've brought. Obviously, that might end up biting me in the butt. Who knows? I think I can manage it pretty well. Overall, I think I'm very pleased with my team. And Jakey's team, I agree, definitely one of the most underrated teams in the league. But actually, he has a pretty good lineup: Mimikyu, Zarude, Inteleon, Quagsire. I don't really count this as an underrated team in my opinion. I think it's a really good team.
I think it comes down to the coach. No disrespect to Jacob, it's just because we don't really know, anything about him, at least competitively. So I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, but I do think he has a chance of having a solid season. But that being said, I almost forgot that we kind of have to do predictions here. I'm taking the 3-time champ. I think, the main factor that is on Jakey's side is the element of surprise. Like I just mentioned, we don't really know too much about him competitively. We don't know how he battles. So I think that could play in his favor if he comes into this match confident and playing, like a veteran. Then he can really have a chance in this match. But I'm taking experience here. I'm taking what we know. I mean, the 3-time champ is a 3-time champ for a reason. He's great and he's handsome. He's funny and he's awesome. I'm only doing this because he's here. But I'm taking Port Sill. I'm assuming you're gonna back yourself. I mean, you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna back myself. No offense, Jakey. Like you said, the only thing, aside from the pretty good lineup that you have, we don't know how you battle. So then there's those two things going for you. So I'm backing myself, obviously, because you gotta love yourself. But I don't know. Who knows? Week 1 might be a doozy.
We'll see. The reigning champ lost last season against a newcomer, so who knows? Now, moving on here, we have our second matchup of week 1, the Texas Tyranitar versus the New York Matangs. I was about to say the New York Maxes. This is the Doorman, who's the coach of Texas, and MetaMaxes, who's the coach of New York. This is going to be an interesting matchup because on the one hand, the Doorman has quite possibly his best team. I think I could say definitively his best teams thus far in the EBL. He drafted Yveltal, Galarian Manatan, Blacephalon, Swampert, Grimmsnarl, Espeon, Snorlax, Galvantula, and Lucario. This is a pretty healthy team in terms of balance. I think there's obviously a couple annoying Pokemon in there, like Snorlax, like Grimmsnarl, like Galvantula. Pokemon that can do some work outside of, just straight up hitting your opponent. Some good setup and some good utility there. This team is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it is very good. Again, I'd say Alan's best team thus far. It's just a matter of if he puts in the training and the work. He did show signs last season that he was beginning to learn from his mistakes and he's beginning to grow more, and being able to realize where he was messing up in battles and with his prep and stuff. He definitely did a great job at adjusting as the season went on. Didn't exactly end maybe the way he wanted it to. It was a pretty one-sided battle there, but regardless, he did show signs of improvement last season, and I think he'll continue that level of improvement here. But on the other hand, we have the New York Matangs and MetaMaxes. Now, we know MetaMaxes has a good amount of competitive experience. You can tell just by looking at his team, quite frankly. He drafted Kartana, Gastrodon, Dialga, Togekiss, Gigalith, Ferrothorn, Machamp, Hatterene, and Rotom. It's an interesting team. It's a sand team, I think, on the surface, but there's also little hints of Trick Room in there. It's a competitive team. I mean, you can tell that this guy has competitive experience. You can tell that he more than likely knows what he's doing with these Pokemon and has used them before. It's a good balance, in my opinion, kind of similar to the Doormans of offense and defense. I think there's a lot of a good amount of offensive pressure, but the Pokemon that add a lot of offensive pressure are also fairly bulky, except Kartana, of course. Things literally made of paper. But I think Maxis has a very solid team. I think it's honestly like the only true weather team in the league, at least majority weather team. I think it's like the only one that got drafted this season, but for good reason. I mean, it's a very solid team. I like Sand Team. I've had experience with Sand Teams. I think it's a very fun team to use. Not the easiest to use, but it is still pretty fun. And I think that it's just going to be a really good matchup because of these are two pretty powerful teams going at it. What do you think about the newcomer going against the Doorman here?
So yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, just looking at the lineups here, it's pretty evident who has the most combat experience overall, not just within the league itself. I do agree. This is definitely Texas's best team drafted. This is Texas's best teams drafted. I mean, we got the Galarian Darmanitan, which caused the Doorman to have a target on his back by me. And then we have Kartana. Kartana's an interesting one to me. Kartana is an interesting one to me. Let's see how Meta uses it, and who knows? If he uses it well, that might be the next Pokemon on the logo. Again.
Yeah, again. Yeah, this is gonna be a really interesting matchup. I want to believe that the doorman has been doing extra work in the off season. I'm not sure. One of the main things I want to bring up here, guys, by the way, is that pretty much with newcomers, we don't really have a whole heck of a lot to go off of, obviously, unless they're like Maxis and they've been doing competitive. But to our, returning competitors, all we have to go off of is EBL, that, how they've battled in EBL thus far. So keep that in mind when we're saying stuff. We're not trying to offend anyone. There's just not a whole heck of a lot to go off of. Hence why I brought in a co-host as well for this preseason roundup. I'm going to take New York in this one. I think the team is very solid. I think New York will probably struggle in this game. One of the bigger points for Maxis is the ability to adjust to singles no items, because I know regular competitive is doubles items, so it's literally like complete opposite here in the EBL. So I don't know how long it's going to take them to adjust. We've seen, the likes of like Crobats back in season 1 making that adjustment, winning 3 matches right off the rip, and then falling off at the end of the season. But we'll see how Maxis deals with the change, whether he's able to adjust quickly, because it's not the same. It doesn't play the same. Some Pokemon perform 10 million times better in singles no items than they do in doubles items. So we'll see how he adjusts, how he can sort of change his knowledge of competitive to adjust to the EBL. But I'm going to take New York. I think the experience there can help. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets off to a slow start, though. But I think this is going to be a close match regardless. I can see either side winning, but I'm gonna take New York in this one. What do you think?
No, I'm taking New York on this one too. The lineup is just too strong, regardless of it being Texas's best team to date that he's drafted. I think that the amount of offensive pressure that New York carries versus Texas is just it's unfair. It's unfair, considering that Texas has a lot of big guns in America. But anyway, yeah, the amount of offensive pressure here, I'm back in New York all the way.
All right, so moving on to our next matchup here, we have 2 newcomers. This was formerly the Atlanta Braviary, then it became the Indiana Pikachus, and now it's the TJ Dropouts, whose coach is Smoosh Moosh. It went from a veteran against a newcomer to a newcomer against a newcomer, and it's still a newcomer versus a newcomer. So yeah, TJ Dropouts, whose coach is Smoosh Moosh, versus the San Antonio Espers, whose coach is Sly Guy, if I'm remembering correctly.
The TJ Dropouts?
No.
Oh, okay.
San Antonio.
I don't know.
Keep in mind, yeah, keep in mind, by the way, I believe every matchup this week is a divisional matchup, so these could play a really big factor later on in the season. But TJ versus San Antonio, 2 newcomers. The TJ Dropouts, unfortunately, did not get to draft their own team. They inherited the team that Matty Ice of the Stone fam, the one that he drafted, which was a team of all of the mascots from his family. The team consists of Cinderace, Charizard, Rillaboom, Blastoise, Garchomp, Volcanion, Sylveon, Meowstic, and Glalie. A pretty solid team for being a quote unquote theme team. I guess it is a theme team. It's still really solid. It is unfortunate again that Smoosh had to inherit a team that isn't his. We've already had to see this, unfortunately, for a couple seasons in the EBL. But regardless, I think it is a solid team nonetheless. There are a couple weaknesses in there that I won't say out loud for anyone who has to battle him. You'll have to figure that out on your own. But there are a couple big weaknesses that I can see right off the rip. But regardless, if Smoosh is able to kind of work around those weaknesses, you can actually put up a really good fight with this team. There's a couple Pokemon in there that can be annoying. There's some bulk in there, and there's some offensive pressure in there. Obviously, we've seen what the Bunny can do. We've seen what Charizard and Rillaboom can do as well. Volcanion and Garchomp, I believe, have not been used in the EBL, if I remember correctly. I don't remember Garchomp exactly. I don't think it's been used. Right? Yeah, okay. So we'll see what they can do. This is their debut in the EBL. I do think they're solid Pokemon. So we'll see. There's a lot of offensive pressure here. There's a decent amount of bulk. I don't think it has the best balance in the league. But I do still think it's a pretty solid team. Again, there are a couple big weaknesses. But if he's able to weather that, then it should, shape up to be a pretty decent season on that end. For San Antonio, they drafted a pretty interesting team. Put together Kyogre, Zygarde, Blaziken, Scizor, Azumarill, Mamoswine, Aegislash, Mandibuzz, and Rotom-Mow. This is an interesting team. I don't think it's bad necessarily. I don't want to think it's not like I think it's bad. It is an interesting team though. We've seen Azumarill in the league. It hasn't really had a whole lot of moments, so we'll see how Sly is able to use it. Zygarde as well. I think only had like one good battle when Max had it. It wasn't amazing when it was in the league. But we got to see, a little bit of Rotom-Mow, a little bit of Mandibuzz, some Mamoswine, Aegislash, Kyogre. He has some very powerful threats on this team. And if I remember correctly, San Antonio's schedule, at least on paper, isn't incredibly difficult. So I think if Sly, can bring some competitive experience and get some practice in, it's a team where he can actually come away with a few wins here. It's a team that I feel like will kind of fly under the radar, almost like Snowdonian's, Jakey's team. I think it'll kind of fly under the radar, even though he's got a lot of threats on this team. We'll see if he's able to sort of interweave them, though. I think that's the biggest thing for this team. On paper, I don't know exactly how some of them will work together, but I still think if he can figure out a way to make this team mesh together, it can be very scary because there's a lot of offensive threats on here. So we'll see how he's able to handle his week 1 matchup. What do you think about these two teams?
So starting with the team that you just finished with, I actually like San Antonio's team. I actually like San Antonio's team when we go back to it. I think that, yeah, you're right. It has a lot. I think Zygarde is questionable to me because you're right. It didn't have the best season. It didn't have the best run. Blaziken did well. Scizor did well. Azumarill, I don't remember seeing any EBL. If it was there, I definitely don't remember it.
Maddie had it in season 3, I think.
Who?
Matt.
Oh, okay. I don't remember it. Mandibuzz. I mean, it's a good lineup. The Kyogre definitely stands out to me. And then on the flip side, we have the TJ dropouts with the Cinderace. The Cinderace, I think, is going to prove a little bit key for Smoosh to play around with. I think, contrary to what you said, I think that the team offers a pretty good amount of balance. I think. And we got to remember that, different Pokemon can learn different different typings of their movesets and whatnot. I don't know. I like their team. I think it's a very good team. Did you go over your predictions yet?
No.
Okay, so I'll leave that part to you, and then I'll tell you where.
I think it's a good team too. I hope I didn't make it sound like I didn't think it's a good team. It is a good team.
You're very
good. This is interesting because I don't really know what level of experience Sly has. I know Smoosh has some competitive experience in there. I don't know how extensive it is, but I know he has competitive experience. Again, it could be a similar thing to Max's, so we're trying to adjust to the EBL's rule set. Could be a little more challenging. I personally like San Antonio's team more. The only pick I'm kind of on the fence about is Zygarde. It's a thing where I don't think Zygarde is bad. I just think there are better Pokemon that can do what it does. That's just me personally. But regardless, I think that to me, I don't know what it is. His team just looks more dangerous. Sly's team. So I'm gonna back the San Antonio Espers here. We'll see how he's able to deal with a couple of the threats, like you mentioned, Cinderace, and then the brand new legendaries being brought in. But I like San Antonio's team a little more on paper. Just usability. I think it looks more fun to use, honestly. So we'll see how Sly's able to use it. But yeah, I'm taking San Antonio that one.
I'm gonna back you up on San Antonio simply because I think Zygarde, the Blaziken, the Mamo, those three are standing up to me the most. I think they'll cause a little bit more havoc. I don't know, honestly. You know what? I'm gonna back TJ. I like their team. I'm gonna back.
This is probably one of the closer matchups we're gonna have, honestly.
Probably. I'm gonna back TJ on this one. Smoosh, don't let me down.
Next up, we have the Iowa Incineroar versus the Carolina Garchomps. Now, I'm not gonna dive into it because it's in the past. It is what it is. No, I'm not gonna dive into the reasoning. The past is the past. The Iowa Incineroar are serving a punishment for this season. This means that every regular season match they can only bring 4 of their 6 Pokemon. So essentially, they're down 0-2 to start with. They're down 2 kills to start with, or I guess 2 deaths. So we're gonna be keeping that in mind, making these predictions and stuff, and talking about his team. But regardless, I do think Inferno Man put together a pretty good team. He's gonna be taking on the. Did I say it already? He's gonna be taking on the Carolina Garchomps. I think I said it. But first up, like I said, we have the Iowa Incineroar, coaches Inferno Man. His team is Zacian, Salamence, Incineroar, Vanilluxe, Diggersby, Amoonguss, Minxiao, Alolan Raichu, and Gyarados. This team has a lot of offensive pressure. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of offensive pressure here. And okay amounts of bulk. I think he's lacking a little bit there, in my opinion. Some of his Pokemon kind of go down a little too easily. To me, at least on paper, looking at the team here without really getting too in depth. I think he's missing a little bit of bulk, but regardless, I think the amount of offensive pressure should be able to cover that. His team kind of epitomizes the idea of offense is the best defense, because it is a very offensive team. Like I said, I think he put together a good team to be able to counter that punishment. Or I don't have no clue if I said that, but I'm saying it now. He put together a good team to be able to counter that punishment. The hard part for me is there's not many coaches who have won when down 0-2. It doesn't happen extremely often, so the fact that he has to do it 5 weeks in a row makes this extremely challenging. His opponent this week, though, is a newcomer, so that could play in his favor. We'll see. Nudie or Newtbox is the coach of the Carolina Garchomps. His team is Zeraora, Gengar, Salazzle, Blissey, Hitmonchan, Naganadel, Pikachu, Tauros, and Sandslash. Some interesting picks here. I hope he knows we don't do items because Pikachu is a very interesting pick. I think obviously that stands out the most on his team. It's just without Light Ball, I know it has Gmax Stun Shock, I believe is what it's called. Or I can't remember. I think it's something like that. But it paralyzes everyone when Gmax's point is. But why would you want to Dynamax Pikachu when you have other Pokemon in your team that kind of need it more or would benefit from it more? So Pikachu might be a one and done. He might bring it against Landon. Who knows? Underestimating him. I think that's something Landon will have in his favor. Inferno Man is that teams might underestimate him when they go into those matchups, which I can't stress that enough. You guys shouldn't, because that team is actually pretty good. So we'll see how Nudie approaches this. The Sandslash is also a little questionable. I like Sandslash personally, but I think there are much better ground types. And then Hitmonchan, I think Hitmontop is the best of them. I don't think Hitmonchan is bad. I just think Hitmontop is better. Maybe not move pool wise, but I think overall, that's just my opinion. I like Hitmonchan the most, but at least usability, I think Hitmontop is better. And then Blissey is one of my least favorite Pokemon because it's a false tank. It has a lot of health and a lot of special defense, but 0 defense practically. So you hit it with like a Mach Punch and that thing will die. So some questionable picks in there, but I think if he plays his cards right, I think he needs to go strong against Landon in week 1 to try and really establish himself quickly. And maybe get some of those questionable picks out of the way. Everyone else I like on this team: Tauros, Naganadel, Salazzle, Gengar. I like all those Pokemon. The other ones are I'm a little on the fence about. I think either they're not good for the league or there are better Pokemon that he could have taken to replace them. But yeah, that's just what I think of these teams. What do you think?
I didn't hear anything you said. I'm just messing. No, I got distracted because I keep hearing a thumping. I don't know if it's me or if it's if I'm hearing feedback from your mic. But anyway, so who are you? Well, anyway, regarding these two teams, absolutely right. There's not a lot of teams, coaches out there that can handle a -2 right off the bat, and then come out. So that's the thing that Landon is facing with that handicap. And then that's not to mention, of course, just to reiterate the part of the rules that he has to bring all 9 of his Pokemon during the regular season, and that's going to be a hard feat in and of itself. However, However, we'll see. Let's see how he does, because I think with the amount of firepower that Landon has in his team, I think he could make it work. I truly think he can make it work if he plays his cards right. I think he has a decent amount of bulk. I mean, when I will leave it, but Zashit actually is reasonably, he's actually pretty durable, not for nothing. You know, and then we got a Moongus that's going to be annoying. And then on the flip side, we got definitely the most interesting picks of any team that I've seen with Blissey. You sneeze and it dies. And then Pikachu, but then you have powerhouses like Naganadel and Zeraora. Just FYI, Nudie also has a target on his back because he stole my bull. But Tauros is another one that seems very fun to use. I already know who I'm going to pick, but hey, it's up to you for this one.
It depends on how Newt approaches this match, because if he wants to come in, if he underestimates Landon, I think it's gonna pay for it. I think if anyone underestimates Landon this season, despite the handicap, they're gonna pay.
Handsome.
So you gotta be careful when you're taking him on. Yeah, you're up, 2 already, but you got to be careful. You can't come into these matches overconfident. Also, I don't know if he wants to try and throw some of those weaker Pokemon in right away against Landon, thinking it'll be, kind of one of his easier matchups. So he might maybe bring Pikachu, maybe bring Sandslash, maybe bring Blissey to try and, get those Pokemon out of the way. I think Blissey is a terrible matchup for Landon's team because it's very physical. So Blissey, I probably shouldn't have given that away, sorry, but you should not bring that. So that kind of leaves 8 Pokemon there, and it's like, does he really want to bring the Pikachu, get it out of the way, or what? It depends on how Newt approaches this match. I think ultimately, I'm actually gonna back Landon in this one. I don't really know Nudie's experience. I don't know how much competitive experience he has. I don't know how much practice he's been putting in, so that will definitely play a factor into this. I think it all depends on how he approaches this match, though. If he approaches this way too confident, he's going to pay. But if he comes in well-practiced and prepared, he should be able to handle Landon. But I'm actually going to back Landon in this one. I know it's a little weird, him starting in 0-2, but I think a couple slip-ups, and Landon can easily get back into this match quickly. So I'm going to back Landon. What do you think?
Before I go ahead, I agree. I'm definitely backing Landon on this one. And of course, guys, just to remember, this is just our analysis of the teams. If you guys have a game plan, it doesn't matter if you're bringing a Wurmple. If you guys have a game plan, do your game plan. We're here seeing and analyzing what and why certain Pokemon have been drafted. Don't let what we're saying sway you. You got a game plan. Go for it.
Yeah, a lot of what we say is on paper, surface level.
Exactly.
You guys do the in-depth work. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'm going with Landon on this one. The firepower is just too great for this one. Nudie has a couple of hitters. Not gonna lie, and if that Naganadel is left going rampant, it's going to cause some mayhem. That's a good nickname for it. Hint, Nudie. But I'm going back with Landon on this one.
All right, so those are actually, I did not realize, those are all the Mega Conference matchups out of the way, which is really interesting. Next up, we're moving on to the Dynamax Conference matchups. Again, this week is all divisional. We have the Colchester Celtics and Pokepidge coming off of his second straight finals appearance, taking on the Florida Relics and Mike the Quick, a newcomer. We saw last season Pidge was a little frazzled when he had to take on Timmy in week 1. It was an interesting thing where it seemed like his normal prep wasn't quite there, and he definitely took quite a bit of time before he warmed up. But his team this season, I mean, I don't know which team I like more, his team last season or his team this season. I think he kind of keeps getting better and better in certain ways. I don't know if this is a straight up improvement from last season. I do like some individual Pokemon more. He drafted Zamazenta, Solgaleo, Hatterene, Wishiwashi, Jolteon, Tauros, Ice Cube, Mudsdale, and Cursula. For those of you who might not have known, these are all Pokemon who were not drafted in seasons 1 through 4. I love his legend picks. Zamazenta, the fact that it took 5 seasons before someone took it is insane. It's just like Zacian, it just gets the defense boost. So I was surprised it took that long for Zamazenta to get taken. And then Solgaleo, I love Solgaleo, so I'm a fan of that pick. But then he's got some other Pokemon in there that are really interesting. Hatterene's a really fun utility Pokemon. Wishy-Washy is one of the more interesting picks, but with good reason. If you guys go look at Wishy-Washy stats, it is a scary Pokemon. It is not a fun Pokemon to try and go against a try, because you got to get rid of it. You got to get rid of it really fast, or else. And he has a lot more Pokemon who add offensive pressure as well. The Speedster Jolteon, the hard hitter Tauros, Ice Cube with Ice Face, if used properly, can be scary. Mudsdale is incredibly bulky once it gets stamina going. I'm not sure what Cursula can do, but hey, we'll see. I trust Pidge. I didn't know what a double could do, but clearly Pidge did, so he took that last season with good reason.
Oh, I see that Cursula strat a mile away.
So a solid team nonetheless. And he is taking on Florida, who drafted Incineroar, Zeraora, Cinderace, Groudon, Dracovish, Azumarill, Alakazam, Galarian Mantan, and Excadrill. A very offensive team. I think on paper the only ones that seem very bulky to me are Groudon and Azumarill if it's built right. I mean, there's a lot of offensive weapons on this team. It's a scary team, again, offensively. I don't know about defensively. He's gonna kind of have to work around that a bit. I think he lacks a bit of bulk. Again, I don't know these Pokemon stats off the top of my head, but Groudon, Azumarill, I guess maybe Incineroar can take a couple hits too. The rest of them don't necessarily go down in one hit, but they can't exactly take too many hits before they go down fast. But regardless, I mean, it's a very offensive team. I mean, Excadrill, Galarian Mantan, Dracovish in the right conditions can be scary. Obviously, we know about Cinderace. Zeraora has been drafted by both conferences this season with good reason. It's a very good Pokemon. So we'll see. We'll see how he's able to manage his team. Mike, I say this about every newcomer. Don't know his competitive experience too well. But if he plays his cards right, offense is the best. Defense will be his key. And this is a team that's very capable of doing so. What do you think about these two teams here? The two-time finalists and the newcomer.
I like. I gotta say, I definitely like. I like Pidge's team a lot more. Zamazenta. I like Zamazenta. You know, it's a very underrated Pokemon. There's me, and well, me now. Hatterene is definitely. We haven't seen the likes of Hatterene, like you mentioned, because these are all picks that haven't been drafted. Hatterene is pretty good, and then Wishy-Washy is the one that definitely stands out. It's Wishy-Washy and Mudsdale, and you make fun of me all you want, Josh, but I'm seeing that Cursula strat a whole mile away. I see you, Pidge. I see what's going on. And then on the flip side, Groudon, Incineroar, to me, are the real bulky ones in this team. So yeah, Florida doesn't have a lot of bulk here, and the ones that can take more than one hit don't like taking multiple hits, like Galarian Darmanitan in particular. But if he plays his cards right with said Darmanitan, that thing is going to be scary as heck. So it's interesting to see how these two are going to go up against each other. That's all I have to say on these two teams.
I think if Pidge finds his flow that he had towards the end of last season, because his first season he was a pretty defensive player. And by pretty, I mean very. I mean extremely defensive. He was an extremely defensive player. He was an extremely defensive player in his first season. In the second season, his second season, it took him some time to kind of get going offensively. He was still kind of in a defensive mind. It was like he was in a defensive mindset trying to play offensive. It didn't quite work for the first 3 weeks, but then he found his flow in week 4. And when he got his flow in week 4, he was very scary. There was only like 1 kill against him in 3 weeks. And then in a championship match, I think there was a couple of decisions he probably could have made differently that would have benefited him a lot more. But regardless, I mean, his ability to kind of flip that switch is impressive. But I think to really cement himself as a really, like, he's already a top dog, but to really cement himself this season, I think a balance needs to be found on his team. And if I'm gonna trust anyone, there's not many coaches I'm gonna trust to find a consistent balance. He's one of them. His ability to, come up with these awesome tactics, and his prep is insane, and then his in-game decisions are awesome as well. I think he's more than capable of finding a balance between offense and defense here. He's got the team to be able to do it. It's a pretty good team. So I'm backing Colchester in this one. I know they lost week 1 last season against the newcomer. I don't really count that. Not going to count that. I will count it, but like, I'm not going to use that as part of my decision making. I think if Pidge goes into this with his normal amount of prep, he should be able to walk away with a win here. Again, I think it's all about balance with him. It's all about balance this season for him. And I think he'll be more than capable of handling that. What do you think?
I agree. And with that being said, I'm personally going with I'm going to go with Pidge on this one.
I thought you were going to fake me out and say Florida.
I'm trying to find. Actually, I did disagree with you on one, but the fact of the matter is that you and I are seeing a lot alike in competitive, and and we have the same views, and so it's kind of hard to go against you on one of these little things. Not that I'm trying to do so, but I'm just trying to see. Hey, you know what I mean, right? But I'm backing Colchester with this one all the way. Wishy-washy, Solgaleo, Zamazenta stand out to me. I think that those are going to be problems, and along with that, Ursula.
Yeah. Now moving on, we have the LA Inferno and yours truly versus the Walton Wingles and Nate Tube. So my team consists of Naganadel, Zashin. I don't know why I get so weird when I get to my team. Naganadel, Zashin, Lapras, Rotom Heat, Scizor, Leafeon, Porygon Z, Rodriguez, and Mimikyu. If I do say so myself, I think I built a team with a really good balance here. There are multiple Pokemon who can dish, but can also very much take. And then there's some Pokemon who could just take straight up. And then there's obviously other Pokemon. Zashin's on the logo for a reason. It is a very scary Pokemon offensively. Naganadel, we've seen what it could do in the past. Excuse me. And then we've seen what Mimikyu can do in the past as well. There's a lot of offensive threats here. There's a lot of defensive threats here. Pokemon that can bulk, but can also dish some hits. I think I drafted a team with a really good balance. It's not the team I was originally planning on, but thankfully my draft got derailed. I know that sounds weird, but it actually worked out, and then my draft got derailed because I was able to put together a much better team. It opened my eyes to all the other options I had, and I was able to put together a better team than I originally planned. So I think my team is pretty good balance, and if I can use it correctly, I'll use the same line as I did last season. If I can use it correctly, I can definitely put some work in this season. On the flip side, we have the Walton Wingles, who drafted Guzzlord, Celesteela, Snorlax, Galarian Slowbro, Copperjaw, Scrafty, Malamar, Colossal, and Arctozolt. There is a theme there. I don't know if I want to say it out loud, but there is a theme there. It is a team that falls under one umbrella. It took me a second to figure it out, so it took me a second to realize it. This is a big if. It all comes down to Nate. It's a big if. If Nate puts in the practice and if Nate puts in the work, just screw the track record. At this point, if I'm Nate, I'm just forgetting the last 2 seasons. Not all the good stuff, all the bad stuff, the record, just all that stuff. I'm forgetting all of that. What I'm remembering is all the stuff I learned along the way. Just screw the track record, screw all of that. Just remember all the stuff that he's learned. Remember all the stuff that you've learned, Nate. Use that and grow and practice, because this is a tricky team to use. This is a tricky team to use. It is probably one of the harder gimmick teams to use, in my opinion. Trying to keep it going and make sure your team is still in the advantage is a very tight rope to walk with this team. So I'm curious to see if Nate is able to handle it. I think if he takes all the positives from his last season, because he did show a lot of glimpses last season. I think especially the match I will keep pointing to is when he played Bob. I think he showed a lot of, or Yeltsin, he showed a lot of, improvements and glimpses of just improvements. So I think he can take that carrying to this season with this team. It's going to be interesting to see if he can handle it, and if he, how he deals more specifically with the counters to this team. Because he can learn how to use his team all the dude all day, but if he's getting countered every single match and he can't adjust, that's a massive problem. So we'll see how Nate's able to handle this. I'm very curious as to why he drafted this team and what was the motivation. But I'm also more curious to see if he can, properly use it. And I think with practice, he should be able to. What do you think? What do you think about these two teams here?
I think both teams are trash. I think that especially LA Inferno doesn't know what he's doing at all.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.
I'm kidding. All right, on a real note, guys. On a real note. So I think that this is probably, starting with the Walton Wingles, this is probably his best team that he has drafted, in my opinion, because I think that he can do a lot of damage. Malamar stands out to me the most. I see that strat coming a mile away. So if he plays it right, he can cause some significant damage. Galarian Slow Bro, not Slow King, but Slow Bro. That ability is going to come in handy. And then we have the best Ultra Beast, in my opinion, or one of the best, Celesteela, as well. So I think that this is his best team. But on the contrary, we're talking about, if I do say so myself, the literal sword of the EBL. If there was a shield in the EBL, if Essex was the Great Wall, this is the Great Sword. This team has the most offensive pressure in the entire league. Hands down. You have the Ganadel, Zacian, and you have Scizor, and then Leafeon, and then I think he was inspired by Runerigus. But but definitely the literal sword in the EBL. Hands down, the toughest, the scariest team. How Nate is going to come and defend against the sword is beyond me. I don't know. I myself, even with my team, and my team is pretty good, I'm trying to see what ways I can find to slink through the cracks on this one. This is a very well-built team. So clearly, combat experience speaks a lot when it comes to the LA Inferno and his coach. So personally for me, when it comes to these two teams, I'm backing LA.
It means a lot.
Oh, I thought the connection broke.
Yeah, I'm gonna back myself. I have to. Some bias in there, but I do think
and no bias on my part. It's just literal facts.
Oh yeah. But I think if I can counter and throw Nate off, I think one of the biggest things with gimmick teams is being able to throw them off with counters that are, maybe not traditional. So if I can do that, and trust me, I've been looking. Then it's not an easy win. I don't want to say it's gonna be an easy win because it's gonna be really interesting to see how I can kind of work around that. I haven't had to face many gimmick teams, but I think I can definitely scrape out a win there with coming up with some counters. So you said me, right? So we can move on.
Rude.
Next up, we have the Detroit Luxuries versus the Greater Manchester Greninjas. Detroit Luxuries coach is Game Reviews. Greater Manchester Greninjas coach is the Raging Lake. One of two veterans, one of the original six, left in the league. I'm right in that, right? There's only two of you left, right?
Yeah, there's only two originals left.
Sad. Now I'm calling you out, Max. That was the weakest theme team I've ever seen.
I'm gonna have to go with that one too. He got us so excited. He's doing Wheel of Fortune, and we're gonna see all new mons. We were expecting to see a Caterpie and a Metapod, and no.
So for those of you who might not have known, Max, or Game Reviews, told us before this season he was going to do wheel spins for his picks. Now, what we thought it was that he was going to put every Pokemon from Sword and Shield on the wheels, spin it, whatever it lands on, he's going to take. Turns out he was actually putting all the Pokemon he's ever drafted on the wheels, spinning it and getting it. To me, I don't think Max has ever drafted a bad Pokemon, so that was kind of a win-win. Like, he really wasn't going to be able to come up with a terrible team. And then he still ended up walking away with Salamence and Kyogre, two of his best Pokemon he's ever had. So the wheel spins didn't really make a difference. He should have just put this team together, honestly. Because I think looking at Max's past teams, I don't think there's many Pokemon he'd replace here. He drafted Blaziken, Salamence, Magnezone, Alola Ninetales, Togekiss, Kyogre, Gyarados, Gengar, and Quagsire. A fair amount of bulk in there. Obviously, you have, you know, the likes of Quagsire, which can take some hits. Alola Ninetales maybe can't take the most hits in the world, but it does carry Aurora Veil and Snow Warning, which is retroactively makes the other Pokemon bulky. Togekiss can be bulky if built correctly. But then he also has a ton of offensive pressure, like I mentioned, Salamence and Kyogre. Obviously, Gyarados, Blaziken are dangerous Pokemon as well. You can't really count out Magnezone or even Gengar because they're also Pokemon that can do a lot of work if you're not too careful and you don't pay too much attention to them. So this team, like I said, if he really wanted to take Pokemon from his past teams, he should have just put this team together in the first place, because this is more or less a lot of his best Pokemon that he's ever had. And it's I know we're joking around, just messing around, Max, but it is a really solid team despite the wheel spins. And he was able to actually and he was able to actually put together a decent team to be able to put up a fight this season. On the flip side, why did I just completely forget who he was facing? Manchester. The Raging Lakes team consists of Dragapult, Rayquaza, Corviknight, Lucario, Vikavolt, Raichu, Glaceon, Decidueye, and Charizard. His Charizard. Thank you. His limited picks, Dragapult and Rayquaza, haven't done a whole heck of a lot in the EBL, we'll be honest. Their performances in the EBL have not been fantastic. I think Rayquaza has had one good match in the EBL, and Dragapult has never really been able to show off a whole heck of a lot. So we'll see what the Raging Lake's able to do with those two picks. I do like a lot of his other Pokemon, though. I like Charizard, I like Glaceon, I like Lucario, I love Corviknight. Jerk, stole it. But I think it's a pretty solid team. There's an okay amount of bulk in there as well. I honestly like it. I think my biggest question again is how he's going to use Dragapult and Rayquaza. I'm curious. I'm very curious to see how he's able to use those and utilize them. So we'll see what the Raging Lake is going to do. What do you think about these teams?
There's not much you can say on Max's team because you pretty much covered all the bases there, you know. Very good team, and he's never really drafted a bad Pokemon. So I'm gonna go ahead and focus more on Manchester. As you guys well know, it feels like everybody knows, but we've said it for like the third time for the 3 reports that we've done. I keep track of who uses what Pokemon the best. And whatnot. So those two for me, the special picks, Dragapult and Rayquaza. I'm interested in seeing how Raging Lake uses those Pokemon because, like you said, they haven't had the best run in the EBL. I think to date, Rayquaza was best used by Alan, and Dragapult was best used by Stone Family 64. I had both, and I couldn't find use for them, to be honest. But then we got Corviknight, who, you know, I'm interested in seeing what his Corviknight set will consist of. To date, the best user of a Corviknight set is the host of the roundups right now, Lonely Hermit. And then we got Lucario, Raichu, Glaceon, Decidueye, and Charizard. Of course, the best user so far of using a Charizard is myself. So I'm interested in seeing how he uses some of these Pokemon. Raichu's a great pick. Is it regular Raichu or no? It has to be regular Raichu.
Yeah,
it has to be regular Raichu. So, not much to say on Max's team, like I said. If I had to choose one, though, right off the bat on paper, I'm going with Game Reviews and the Detroit Lux Race because I think that they've gotten a lot better as they've continued to battle. And again, this team is just scary. It's a lot of offensive pressure for your team. With both.
Yeah, I agree. I'm backing Max in this one. And Detroit. I think experience will reign supreme. Again, newcomers have a big advantage in that there's obviously not much known about them competitively. Maxis, I think, might be the only... Maxis and Smoosh, I think, might be the only exceptions. Everyone else were kind of in the dark about what their competitive experience is. So that is a huge advantage for them coming into these matches. But regardless, I think, as you mentioned, Max has been getting better and better with every season that's gone on. So I think he'll continue that and come up with a win in week 1. I'm taking Detroit as well over Manchester. Finally, last but certainly not least, we have the Montebello Morpico versus the DC Starmies. Montebello's coach is Mr. Toast. What'd you say? Finally. The DC Starmies coach it's really Timmy B. Montebello's team consists of the Yin and Yang, Reshiram and Zekrom, Rillaboom, Grimmsnarl, Glaring Blastoise, Crobat, Crocodile, and Koff Rodriguez. A team that has it all. It's a team that kind of has it all. I'll be honest. It's got that really annoying Pokemon in Grimmsnarl. That can also serve as a utility Pokemon, same as Koff Rodriguez as well, but it's got a lot of offensive threats. Obviously, the Yin and Yang, the two legendaries are dangerous. There is kind of a shared weakness on this team, but there are ways to work around it, so we'll see how Mr. Toast, Carlos, is able to work around this. But I do think this is honestly one of the better teams that was drafted this season. I'd probably put it like in my top 5. I think it's a pretty dangerous team, and if Carlos, continues to practice like he has been, and continues to learn more about his team and continuously grows as a battler, this team can be very dangerous. So we'll see what Carlos can do with that. On the flip side, we have Timmy's team, which is also very scary. He drafted Mewtwo, Marshadow, Volcarona, Milotic, Mamoswine, Haxorus, Venusaur, and Biosharp, Anilo, and Raichu. Bisharp, however you pronounce it. This is a team that has a lot of... we talk about offensive pressure a lot because it is a really important thing to have on a team, and Timmy definitely has it. I think I did well with Mewtwo last season to show it off. Marshadow is, if used correctly and put in the right situations, it is not a fun Pokemon to go against. Spectral Thief is a really annoying move. But then you also have the likes of Milotic and Volcarona to kind of add a little bit of, not necessarily, well, I mean, Milotic kind of adds bulk plus offensive pressure. Volcarona continues to add offensive pressure. Mamoswine is scary. Haxorus is scary. Venusaur is kind of a bulky hitter. And then you have Biosharp and Alolan Raichu to kind of come in and do some extra work as well. I think he has a lot of annoying Pokemon, but he also has a lot of Pokemon that can hit very, very, very hard. We'll see how Timmy handles this team because he is a very offensive battler. So this team pretty much suits his play style very well. So in theory, it should serve him well, and he should be able to walk away with a few wins this season. What do you think about these teams?
So again, being honest, I am liking Timmy B's team more on paper than I am with the Morpicos, simply because I think the Marshadow and Volcarona and the Mewtwo stand out to me the most. When it comes to brute strength, Timmy B has it. However, I don't think that brute strength is going to win this one for Timmy too much, because if the Morpicos play their cards right, Morpicos, however the hell you pronounce that, but if they play their cards right, I think that they're going to cause mayhem, because they have some annoying mons there. They have really good utility Pokemon as well. Reshiram, Zekrom, they both hit hard in their respective spectrums on the special and on the physical side, and then we have an insane amount of support to protect them as well. I think that I don't think that the ready, fire, aim tactic that Timmy has is going to work so much with this one, especially if the coach continues to practice Carlos continues to practice. I think that he has a very good team. So we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know. I don't know which one to. I do, and sorry, Carlos. Just again on paper, just pure on offensive purposes on paper, I'm gonna go ahead and back Timmy B on this one. However, I do believe that if you play your cards right and continue practicing, I think you're gonna cause a lot of mayhem. And Timmy, as a coach, has a weakness. Everyone has a weakness. I think that you could exploit it. So this one's gonna be a very close one.
Well, I'm backing Carlos. I don't know. To me, Carlos has a team capable of countering Timmy, and capable of taking advantage.
I agree. Don't get me wrong, Carlos. If you're watching this, don't get me wrong. I don't think that you're not going to win or anything like that. Like I said, on paper, just looking at it on the surface, on paper, when it comes to offensive pressure, because I personally like offensive pressure. This is me personally, because if it's my style, I'm going with Timmy. However, when it comes to versatility and support and everything, you have it. The team has it. Morpekos have it. This is why I'm saying I don't think that the usual tactics that Timmy employs will work when it comes to Carlos and the Morpekos. If Montebello comes out on top, I will not be surprised at all. I really like their team.
Well, I'll give you guys a little behind the scenes. I do think Carlos has looked good in practice.
Good.
I think he looked better than. Why are you saying it like you weren't there?
I wasn't.
He looked better than, honestly, I think we expected. So I think a lot of his problems are going to come with in-game decisions. And if he can climb that hill, I think Carlos can do a lot of work this season. And it starts with week 1. I do totally agree that this is going to be a very close match. It's going to come down to those in-game decisions, those in-game adjustments. And although Carlos might not have that experience right now, I think with time and with practice, he will get there.
He's going to be that snowball, because once he gets traction, he's going to come down hard.
Yeah. But I'm going to back Montebello in this one. So, hey, we disagreed on one. Well, we disagreed on a couple, I guess. So yeah, that is going to be it for the preseason roundup for season 5 of the Elite Battle League. Let us know down below your guys' predictions for week 1, what you think of the teams so far this season. You agreed, you disagree? Let us know down below. Of course, be civil about it. And let us know, of course, who you're rooting for as well. We'd love to know what team you're rooting for, and don't change mid-season. Don't be one of those fans. Stick with your team all the way through. I'm sure it'll be worth it. Probably, maybe, probably. I don't know. Who knows? Half the league gets eliminated when playoff rolls around. So yeah, half the league gets eliminated when playoffs roll around. So we'll see. But yeah, check out of course all the coaches down below. Again, the season starts on February 25th, and all the battles can be found on their channel. So all their channels are down below. Go check them out. Go subscribe to them so you not miss any matches in the Elite Battle League. Saturday, February 25th. Saturday, February 25th is when the season starts. And again, the battles can only be found on their channel, so go check them out. And of course, subscribe to the Elite Battle League channel. We're on the Elite Battle League channel, so subscribe to this channel for future roundups, future power rankings, and anything else that will come along. Do you have any final words for the people?
Not much, just basically piggybacking on what you said. Check out all the coaches in the descriptions below. Follow their Twitches, their Twitters, their YouTubes, their OnlyFans, and all that good stuff. Because we do announce, when each battle is up and everything. So it's best that you also click the bell icon so that you don't miss a thing, not only on their channels but on this channel as well, so you don't miss the power rankings and the roundups. As long as I know that the rankings and the roundups have been renewed and confirmed for this next season. I don't know if the top 5 plays or the top 5 fails have also been renewed, but if they have, those are very enjoyable to watch as well, and they can only be found here on this channel, so definitely check it out. And like Josh said, comment your favorite teams, who you're rooting for. If you don't have a favorite team, well, you can comment your favorite emoji, because the interaction still helps out a lot. That is all from me.
And finally, of course, again, check out, subscribe to the channel. Check out our Twitter as well. I haven't mentioned that actually. There's an EBL Twitter down below. Go check that out. But subscribe to the channel. And again, can't stress this enough. Subscribe to all the other coaches so you do not miss any of the matches. Saturday, February 25th. We'll see you then. And of course, make sure you share social media, friends, family, everyone you know, left. People know the Elite Battle Leagues where it's at. See you guys in there.
Adios.